Have you ever observed how the wealthiest individuals in any gathering often remain the quietest? This isn't because they lack opinions or insights to share. Rather, it stems from their acute awareness of the consequences of careless words. There are certain phrases that millionaires deliberately avoid voicing aloud, neither to their friends, their colleagues, nor even in their own reflections. This isn't a matter of secrecy or hidden agendas. Instead, these expressions are silent destroyers of wealth. If you've ever pondered why some individuals manage to construct vast empires while others merely fantasize about such achievements, the explanation frequently lies in the words they choose to withhold. In this video, we're going to lift the veil on the mindset of self-made millionaires. We won't focus on the superficial glitz or the dubious advice of self-proclaimed gurus. Instead, we'll explore the authentic habits, the unspoken principles, and the subtle language that defines the rich. Because here's the fundamental truth: wealth extends beyond mere finances. It encompasses how you think, how you communicate, and even the phrases you consciously decide never to utter. So, if your goal is to achieve financial independence, you've come to the right place. These 8 seemingly harmless phrases may appear innocent at first glance, but they quietly undermine your potential. Millionaires steer clear of them for a reason, and by the end of today, you will too. Number 1. That's not my job. You'll never hear a millionaire utter these words, not because they relish doing everything themselves, but because they recognize the immense value of taking ownership. When you say, "That's not my job," you're essentially declaring, "I'm unwilling to evolve beyond my current position." This phrase erects an invisible barrier between your present state and your future possibilities. Millionaires refuse to draw such boundaries. Instead, they view challenges as opportunities for growth. They willingly tackle issues outside their designated roles because that's where the greatest personal development and financial rewards are concealed. If you're employed at a startup and you dismiss a task with, "That's not my job," you've effectively excluded yourself from leadership opportunities. However, if you step forward, address the issue, and take initiative, you become indispensable. And it's this indispensability that the market compensates generously. Consider the contrasting mindsets. An average employee safeguards their time and energy by staying within their assigned limits, while a future millionaire expands those limits until they dominate the entire field. You'll find them asking, "How can I assist?" or "What else can I take on to lighten your load?" And that's precisely how promotions are earned, businesses are established, and new skills are acquired without the need for expensive courses or mentors. You might begin by handling tasks that go unnoticed by others. But over time, that unacknowledged effort compounds, much like money does, until someone takes notice, or better yet, until you realize you've outgrown your current role. That's when it dawns on you that refusing to say, "That's not my job," was the first millionaire-worthy decision you ever made. It's not about becoming a pushover. It's about adopting the perspective of an owner rather than an employee. Because millionaires don't wait for authorization, they create their own advancements. Number 2. I already know that. This phrase is particularly insidious. It may seem like a display of confidence, but it's often ego masquerading as wisdom. Saying, "I already know that," is a quick way to slam the door on further learning. And millionaires never close that door. They understand that the moment you believe you've reached the pinnacle, you've ceased to grow. Observe something fascinating about genuinely successful individuals. They ask questions. Even after building 5 businesses, they'll attend seminars, reread familiar books, and listen to novice perspectives. Why? Because each time, they glean at least one new insight, and occasionally, that insight is worth millions. Now, let's compare this to the typical person. The average individual hears advice and, instead of acting on it, responds, "Yeah, I already know that." But here's the critical distinction. Knowing isn't the same as doing. You might understand the concept of investing in index funds, but if you're not contributing monthly, do you truly know it? You might recognize the power of networking, but if you're not fostering relationships daily, what use is that knowledge? Millionaires treat knowledge as a form of currency. They respect it, accumulate it, and put it into action. They never allow their ego to obstruct this process. Even if they encounter the same advice 10 times, they listen as if it's their first exposure, because this time, they might grasp a detail they previously overlooked. They know that repetition transforms knowledge into action, and action into wealth. This mindset also reflects humility. The world's richest individuals are often the most inquisitive. They sit in the front row, take detailed notes, pose follow-up questions, and never assume they've mastered everything. That's why they continue to elevate their success. Saying, "I already know that," is akin to applying the brakes to your financial growth. Millionaires, on the other hand, keep the engine running, the windows open, and the map in hand. Always seeking, always learning, always prepared to advance. Number 3, I can't afford it. At first glance, this phrase might appear responsible or pragmatic, but millionaires don't say, "I can't afford it." Instead, they ask, "How can I afford it?" Because one phrase shuts down creative thinking while the other sparks it. Saying, "I can't afford it," creates a mental block that halts your brain from exploring solutions. It's like closing a door on potential. Millionaires realize that financial capability isn't solely about your current bank balance. It's about your resourcefulness, your creativity, and your willingness to adapt to change your circumstances. Imagine a $5,000 course that could revolutionize your business. The average person might say, "I can't afford it," and walk away. But a future millionaire begins asking smarter questions. Can I barter services for access? Can I arrange the payment into manageable installments? Can I explore free alternatives, take action, and earn enough to purchase the full version later? The question isn't about your current ability to pay. It's about your determination to find a way. That's the key mindset difference. When Elon Musk was financially strained, he didn't say, "I can't afford to start a rocket company." He asked, "How can I build rockets more affordably?" And those answers laid the foundation for SpaceX. Of course, this doesn't mean you should irresponsibly spend money you don't possess. But there's a clear distinction between recklessness and relentlessness. One surrenders at the first hurdle, the other seeks multiple paths around it. Millionaires reframe their language. They never use their bank account as an excuse to halt their growth. They use it as motivation to think creatively, work smarter, and maintain their drive. So, the next time your mind leans toward, "I can't afford it," catch yourself. Instead ask, "How could I afford it if I absolutely had to?" That subtle shift can transform everything. It opens doors, and sometimes those doors lead to an entirely new life. Number 4, that's impossible. The instant you declare something impossible, your brain accepts it as fact. That's why millionaires never allow those words to escape their lips, because deep down, they recognize that impossible is merely an opinion, not a universal truth. Let's revisit any major innovation in history. The electric car, impossible. Online shopping, impossible. Crossing the globe in hours, utterly laughable until it became reality. Millionaires operate in the space between what seems impossible and what becomes inevitable. They know every groundbreaking achievement begins with a wild idea that others dismissed. You'll often hear wealthy individuals say, "What would it take to make this happen?" Or, "Let's find a solution." Because they don't approach problems with a rigid mindset, they tackle them with adaptability. That's how breakthroughs occur. That's how million-dollar ideas are conceived, not from certainty, but from curiosity. Average minds accept limitations. Millionaire minds challenge them. They understand that what feels unattainable now is often just uncharted territory. They don't fear the unknown. They study it, dissect it, and pose questions no one else considers. Think of the Wright brothers constructing a flying machine in a bicycle shop. Everyone deemed it impossible until the day it soared. That's how millionaires approach ambitious goals. A challenge, certainly, but never impossible. This mindset applies to personal finances as well. If you're overwhelmed by debt, most might say, "It's impossible to escape." Millionaires would ask, "What's my strategy to reverse this in the next 18 months?" That's not delusion, that's direction. They know that impossible is just a narrative, and narratives can be rewritten. They don't wait for the world's approval to dream bigger. They decide what's possible and then set out to prove it. Number 5, that's not fair. You won't catch a true millionaire lamenting about fairness. Not because the world is equitable, but because they know obsessing over that concept won't enrich them. "That's not fair" is a phrase rooted in emotion, not action. It directs blame outward rather than turning focus inward. Millionaires recognize that the game of life, business, and money isn't played on a level playing field. Some start with more advantages, others with fewer. Some encounter lucky breaks, while others face significant obstacles. But here's the reality. The market doesn't concern itself with fairness. It rewards value. Deliver sufficient value, and the market compensates you regardless of your starting point. Naturally, it's frustrating to see others succeed when you've worked just as hard. But millionaires don't linger in resentment. They don't dwell on unfairness. They transcend it. They think, all right, that door closed. What other door can I force open? It's a mindset of control. When you say, that's not fair, you relinquish your power. But when you say, let's figure this out anyway, you reclaim it. A young entrepreneur might notice that large companies enjoy better rates, more access, and greater attention. They could say, that's not fair, and give up. Or they could say, let me use my small size for speed and flexibility. Let me build relationships they can't prioritize. That shift from complaint to creativity is the millionaire's hidden strength. Moreover, fairness is subjective. The playing field that seems unjust today might tilt in your favor tomorrow. Timing alters everything. What appears as a disadvantage now could become your greatest asset later if you keep pushing forward. You can spend a lifetime awaiting fairness, or you can build a life that thrives under any circumstances. Millionaires choose the latter. They don't wait for fairness. They engineer their own advantages. Number 6, that's not how it's done. This phrase has crushed more dreams than failure ever will. That's not how it's done is the anthem of the status quo. It's the voice of tradition, comfort zones, and those who've ceased to innovate. Millionaires, conversely, thrive on challenging conventional methods. Because every major success story, every unicorn startup, disruptive company, or unexpected breakthrough began with someone asking, but what if we tried it this way instead? Imagine if Airbnb had said, people don't let strangers stay in their homes. That's not how it's done. Or if Elon Musk had said, electric cars aren't practical. If they had adhered to that mindset, we'd still be booking hotel rooms on outdated travel sites from 2004 and driving gas-guzzling vehicles. But someone had the courage to break the mold. Millionaires don't revere tradition, they analyze it. They respect what works, but aren't afraid to question it. They ask, is this the best approach or merely the oldest one? Could there be a smarter, faster, or more cost-effective path? This mindset applies to money too. Most people follow outdated advice. Get a job, save 10%, retire at 65. Millionaires ask, what if I invest earlier? What if I develop multiple income streams? What if I choose to live fully now rather than retire later? The phrase, that's not how it's done, assumes there's only one correct method. But in reality, there are countless possibilities. Perhaps your approach hasn't been tested yet. Perhaps the world is awaiting someone bold enough to demonstrate its viability. Millionaires know that pioneers never wait for permission. They experiment, test, fail, and try again. And sometimes, by breaking the rules, they end up rewriting them. Number 7, that's not my job. This is a phrase you'll never hear from a millionaire's lips. Not because they lack defined roles or responsibilities, but because they grasp one fundamental truth. Ownership generates opportunity. That's not my job is a statement steeped in limitation. It draws a line in the sand and declares, I'll only do what I'm assigned. But millionaires don't operate within boundaries, they redefine them. They view problems, even those outside their scope, and ask, how can I resolve this? How can I become indispensable? Consider any rising entrepreneur or self-made millionaire. In the early stages, they wore every hat: customer service, marketing, accounting, strategy, sales, tech support. Not because they enjoyed it, but because it was necessary. And by doing so, they gained an unparalleled understanding of their business. Even later in life, this attitude persists. Millionaires don't dismiss a challenge just because it wasn't part of the original plan, they embrace it. They know that the ability to solve any problem, not just their own, is what makes them irreplaceable. Suppose you're an employee at a startup and you notice a flawed process in another department. You could say, not my job. Or you could fix it, optimize it, and save the company time and money. Guess who gets recognized, promoted, and entrusted with more? It's never the one who stayed in their lane. It's the one who expanded it. This mindset extends to finances as well. Millionaires don't say, managing money isn't my thing. They learn, study, and take responsibility for mastering wealth. Because delegating that power to someone else is a recipe for disaster. When you eliminate "that's not my job" from your vocabulary, you project a powerful message. You are a leader in disguise, not someone who waits for directives, but someone who creates solutions. And that's the type of person wealth gravitates toward. Number 8. I already know that. This might be the most perilous phrase of all. I already know that instantly halts growth. It deceives you into believing you've mastered a subject when, in reality, you've only scratched the surface. Millionaires are obsessed with mastery. They don't chase novelty for its own sake. They delve deeper into what works. They know that repetition is the foundation of skill, and that revisiting an idea might reveal a nuance they missed before. I already know that is what the ego says when it seeks to appear clever. Millionaires silence that ego and replace it with curiosity. Even if they've read a book 3 times, they'll read it again, not because they've forgotten, but because they recall its value from the first reading. Suppose someone advises you to pay yourself first. It sounds straightforward. You might nod and say, "Yeah, I already know that." But knowing isn't equivalent to doing. Are you actually implementing it? Are you doing it consistently? Are you investing that money where it can compound, or is it sitting idle? Millionaires don't need new tricks. They need precise execution. That's why they revisit foundational principles repeatedly. They treat simple concepts with the same reverence as complex strategies. Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest men, still reads for 5 to 6 hours daily. Do you think he's encountering entirely new ideas? Rarely. But he's deepening his understanding, refining his edge, and honing what already works. So, when you catch yourself thinking, "I already know that," pause. Ask instead, am I living this? Am I executing this at the highest level possible? If not, it's time to listen again, learn again, and elevate your game. Because millionaires understand that growth lies in repetition, not resistance.